So let's talk about New Mexico here for a second. They just passed stealthily, without voter approval, of course, this facsimile of the new Green Deal. Okay. The person behind this is someone named Sarah Cottrell Probst. She actually she used to work for the energy company that the governor of New Mexico used to help write the wording for the new energy bill. Basically, they're going to cut carbon emissions by 100% in 10 years. Okay, beyond being impossible and highly costly, this company is going to make a fortune. An absolute fortune. Who made a fortune on the whole inconvenient truth thing? Al Gore, wasn't it? Do you think that someone who believed that climate change was happening and that the seas were rising would buy a beachfront home worth millions of dollars and not put in solar panels? Doesn't really make sense, does it? It doesn't. You have stars who are proponents of this whole climate change thing too. I'm not going to say whether or not climate change is happening, is real. Climate always changes. Okay, that's a given. The weather changes. That's a given. But it's whether or not it's human-made or if we can even do anything about it. That's the question. And that's what I'm talking about right here. But you have stars, for instance, like Leonardo DiCaprio. Big proponents, big, voices for climate change issues. And they're traveling around in their yachts that use 5,000 gallons of oil a year. Doesn't make much sense, does it? It really doesn't. So anyway, going back to this Sarah Cottrell. She quit. She's now the Secretary of Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources in New Mexico. And she's put through this stealth green energy bill that's going to get her former employer a ton of money. She also founded, and I couldn't find anything online, maybe one of you can help me out with this, but she's the founder of Probst Consulting, LLC. They specialize in energy and environmental policy. So I'm assuming that she used her own company as a front to work out this deal as well, but I can't verify that because I can't find anything on the company whatsoever. It just doesn't exist right now. So no voter input, no public discussion, no studies as to how it would affect the local economy and the local taxpayers' pocketbooks. New Mexico is pretty much screwed. Their Energy Transition Act, it will require New Mexico to move to 100% carbon-free energy in 10 years. If you do any research onto renewable energy, the only thing that really makes sense is solar. To begin with, wind farms are a big bust. They cost more to run and to maintain than they actually put out. I don't know the whole scope of this bill, but I'm assuming are they going to require everybody to get electric cars as well? And the second part of that is, where are they going to get all their electricity? Are they going to put in a bunch of solar farms? How are they going to make this carbon-free thing actually work? And I'm all for them putting in solar plants. That's cool. But what are they going to do with all those industries that they're going to lose? What are they going to do with all the taxpayers that don't have jobs anymore? It's not something that you can just that you can just force on people. It just isn't. It's not feasible. People are going to get rich, but they're going to put a lot of people in the poorhouse, and I don't think that's quite right. This is a quote from Fox News. Interwest is the company that helped write the bill. Quote unquote, Interwest makes money from renewable energy companies, the very companies now guaranteed to control the state's energy industry by the bill they themselves wrote. That seems, okay, unquote. That seems like a conflict of interest to me. That's like Nike being in charge of fitness in America. You think all the schools are going to have Nike equipment? I'm pretty sure. You know what I mean? That's just a conflict of interest. You can't have something like that. That's not fair. It's not fair to everybody else. And there's definitely an interest. Okay, quote unquote, the men and women whose jobs are now at risk were not invited to the table, nor were the citizens whose utility rates will inevitably skyrocket, nor were the myriad schools, hospitals, and other civic groups whose funding comes from oil and gas tax revenue. Okay, unquote from Fox News. So they're not looking at the big picture here, basically. I mean, when you have something like this that affects the whole entire state, that's affecting industries, it's affecting hospitals, schools. I mean, a lot of that gas tax that you're seeing, why it's $4.30 a gallon, a lot of that money goes to the school system. A lot of that money goes to health system. How are they going to replace that money? They don't have any industry. They don't have any money coming in from taxes. I mean, the only thing I can see working is if they turn New Mexico into a huge solar farm and start selling their energy to other states. For the whole climate change, this is a study back in 2013. UN's alarmist Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has had to finally admit that global temperatures have been flat for at least 16 years, despite rising atmospheric CO2 levels. They also confess that their theoretical simulation models have grossly exaggerated climate sensitivity to CO2. As a result, those social costs resulting from human-caused climate change are at least 1/3 less, and more likely 100% less, than those in the administration's calculations. What does this mean? Basically, an even larger glitch in this accounting contrivance is a failure to credit positive social costs for adding CO2. AKA plant fertilizer. Do people realize this is what plants eat? Back in dinosaur days, for instance, there was a lot of CO2 in the air, a lot of volcanic activity. Those plants that the dinosaurs ate were pretty big, and CO2 is a reason for that. A recent analysis by Dr. Craig IDSO, of the Center for the Study of Carbon Dioxide and Global Change estimates that over the past 50 years, the value of global food production has increased by $3.2 trillion as a result of those CO2 emissions. This suggests that, if anything, those social cost estimates should actually be negative. There's nothing bad about producing more food. Feed the children, we are the people, we are the children, we are the world, etc. Live Aid, all those people starving in Africa. $3.2 trillion increase in food production over the last 50 years. You can say that has to do with a lot of GMOs, you could say that. But you could also probably say that it has a lot to do with how much CO2 is in the atmosphere. Because CO2 is what plants eat. Going back to New Mexico, the sustainability of their whole green energy plan. I mean, I'm going to give you some numbers from Germany. Europe's green energy debacles offer teachable lessons for investors everywhere. Slightly more than 12% of Germany's electricity comes from renewables. Okay, only 12%. Keep in mind, New Mexico wants to go 100. Okay, so listen to what happens here. 7.8% comes from wind, 4.5% from solar, 7% from biomass, 4% from hydro. Meanwhile, German households pay the second highest power costs in Europe, as much as 30% more than other Europeans. Only the Danes pay more, and both countries pay roughly 300% more for residential electricity than we do. So again, the consumer gets stuck with the bill. They're going to be paying for this move for a very long time. I don't know how much money these socialists think we have as Americans, but when we're working 2 and 3 jobs at a time, we don't have a bunch of extra income, do we? I know in California, for instance, when they kept raising the water over and over and over, my landlord raised our water bill by $150 just to pay for the water, which subsequently, most of California's excess water is sold to frickin' Saudi Arabia, and yet we're paying extra for the water that apparently doesn't exist that they're selling. I don't even get that. But anyway, that aside, the consumer is the one that gets jacked in this scenario. No jobs, higher bills. I don't understand how this is a good thing for anybody. I just don't get it. Everybody in New Mexico is going to be paying for it, and only a certain amount of people are going to get rich off of it, and I don't think that's fair at all. What I do think it's fair, however, is this baseball team. Unfortunately, they apologized. But I personally don't think it was a mistake. The Fresno Grizzlies, they posted this Memorial Day tribute. It's a great video, actually, if you haven't seen it. It depicted AOC alongside with dictators like Fidel Castro and Kim Jong-un, and it labeled them as enemies of freedom. Well, personally, I think socialist platforms and dictators are enemies of freedom, and I think she belongs there. All her policies stink. All her crazy eyes. Have you seen her crazy eyes? Omar belonged there too. Just saying. Omar belonged there too. Here you have Rep. Omar. She actually just recently said, quote unquote, I bring the perspective of a foreigner to U.S. foreign policy. I don't want the perspective of a foreigner. I don't understand why she still thinks she's a foreigner. She, on her profile on Twitter, she doesn't even say she's American. She says Somalian refugee. She still considers herself a refugee, even though she's a member of Congress, unfortunately. She loves the Muslim Brotherhood, unfortunately. She's anti-Semitic. I don't care what she has to say about Israel or Palestine. She is a freaking disaster. She should not be anywhere near our foreign policy. She should not be privy to any detailed information on anything we're doing in that area, period. I don't trust her. And then the last one, recently, Beto O'Rourke. Remember he said he was going to revamp his image, redo what his goals were or whatever. So his latest thing is to welcome about 20 million illegals into citizenship of the United States. Yeah, no. No. That's not a plan. That's not a plan. It includes all the dreamers. It includes 9 million people who are waiting. And then it includes all the 11 million, only 11 million. There's supposed to be 30 million here, so I don't know where they're getting these numbers. It's probably more than that anyway. It includes a bunch of people who are already living here illegally. DACA recipients, etc. Send them all back. They've been here long enough. If they haven't gotten their citizenship in the last 20 years and they're still living here, it's ridiculous. They haven't gone through the hoops everybody else is going through, and it's not fair. It's just not fair. I'm not saying I hate him. Go back. Go through the process and come back on. But see, my main issue here is he's cool with allowing MS-13 members to become citizens. He's cool with people who have rape records, murder records, everything under the sun to skip the line and become citizens. I'm not cool with that. You need to vet these people, interview process, however you want to do, background checks, I don't care. You can't just say you're all in. You can't just take them all. It's irresponsible. He said something. O'Rourke's plan, CBS News said this actually. O'Rourke's plan, I'm just going to call him Beta because O'Rourke makes me sound funny. Okay, Beta's plan also calls for easing the naturalization process for some 9 million immigrants already eligible for citizenship. The former Texas congressman said the series of legislative and executive actions is, quote-unquote, the most sweeping rewrite of our nation's immigration and naturalization laws in a generation. I rewrote this quote because I think it's worded wrong. O'Rourke's plan, Beta, his plan shows the most blatant disregard for our nation's laws anyone's seen in a generation. There, we fixed it. These illegals broke our laws to begin with by coming here illegally. And yes, we know not all have committed crimes, but we do not want the ones who commit crimes to stay here. How hard is that to understand? We don't want them in. We don't want them coming in. That's what the wall's about. He wants to abolish the wall too, of course. Yeah, because he's an idiot. But if this is how he's revamping himself to appeal to more voters, I don't know about you, but it's just not working for me, folks. Just not working for me. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Lazy Meatball, at Small Town Andrew. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube, magAMedia.org. Wake up to the truth. Be sure to check out the S2 Project at our website, magAMedia.org. Follow them on Twitter at S2 Command. Give them a phone call at 1-877-783-7778. The S2 Project, headquarters for all Americans, because liberty must win. Check them out and join the team.